Welcome to Business Decoded with Ronnie Spellman. We crack the code so you don't have to.
I have Chris Hall with me, who's the CEO of Remote Area Medical, better known as RAM. Chris, welcome. Now,
Thank you.
your
Thanks for having us.
organization is fantastic. I mentioned to you briefly before we began that I ran across someone at a health convention just the other day, and they were talking about how they partner with you to provide healthcare. But tell us what your organization does. You're really unique because you provide free medical care across the entire country to people in need without any cost, whether they have insurance or don't have insurance. But tell me what you do, and then I'd love to get into the history of the organization, and we can talk about Stan Brock and what he did to really create the organization, seeing his need personally. But what is Remote Area Medical?
So RAM, we're a nonprofit based out of Tennessee. We travel around the country and we set up pop-up medical, dental, and vision clinics. These clinics are provided to the patients on a first come, first served basis. They provide access to basic medical, dental, and vision care free of cost to the patients. So with us, we will only go into a community where we're invited. So typically a local community will reach out and say, hey, we want to bring a RAM clinic to our area. We will work with that community anywhere from 12 to 24 months. And in that 12 to 24 months, we're recruiting volunteers, planning logistics, getting all the consumables ready to deploy. When the time comes for the event, we deploy all of our assets to the location. We set up usually on a Friday, typically in like a school or arena, gymnasium, convention center. There's all kinds of places we could set these events up. And then on Saturday morning at 6 a.m., we open the doors and bring the patients in as they've arrived in the parking lot. And we provide them access to
Now, Chris,
medical,
if you're
dental,
setting
vision
up an
care free of
arena,
cost to
it's
them.
not just a small event at a local establishment with maybe 200, 300, 500 square feet. This is a big operation that you have, and you minimized it on me. But no, these are absolutely massive. I've seen some of the video, and you have what looks like thousands of people waiting at a massive arena that might seat tens of thousands of people to be able to see and have the work. What are people usually coming there for? What do you find the greatest need is across the country?
Yeah, so the greatest need that we're seeing across the country is dental. About 60% of our patients coming to our front door are asking for dental services. Another 30 to 35% of them are asking for vision service, comprehensive eye exams, and eyeglasses. Only about 5% coming asking for medical services out of the gate. But once they come in, we do a triage with them. We let them know of what providers we have on the medical component. Closer to 50% of our patients walk away from the event seeing a medical doctor, even though that wasn't their intention of coming to the doors. And we just ensure that while they're there, they're getting the most care that they can.
Now,
while
I mentioned your organization. I described what you do, and someone said that they asked the question, Ronnie, is that something that happens in the United States? Like, they're so used to hearing about organizations that are global, providing medical care and medical assistance for free. In fact, my daughter traveled to Guatemala as a teenager so that she can participate with a medical program that provided dental. She saw a couple of teeth extractions in Guatemala on that trip, but they were surprised that an organization like yours exists here in the U.S. Why is that? Why is there such a need, you think, for these medical services?
Yeah, so to answer that, well, I'll dive just a little back in our history. So in 1985, we were founded to go into developing countries of the world. We were parachuting doctors out of our historic C-47 aircraft into regions of Guyana, Brazil, South America, Central America. But then in 1992, a hospital in Tennessee closed in a rural Appalachia town. And that town reached out and said, hey, you're going all over the world. Would you mind bringing those doctors to our borders right here an hour from where your office is at? And so we did our first event in 1992 here in the States. And since then, right now, at 100% of our operation is stateside. So there's a little bit of an international component in the Philippines, but the majority of the work that we're doing is right here at home, right here in our backyard.
When you plan an event, how many doctors do you have, and how many volunteers do you need to make this event occur?
So it varies depending on the size and scope of the event. So we can do anything from a 20 dental operatory event all the way up to 140 dental operatories. The size and scope of that varies from a high school gym kind of arena or a full convention center decked out with full operatories with negative air pressure and HEPA air scrubbing technology. It varies. So we do events in Appalachia, and we base it off of the population that we're expecting to attend the event. So in something in Eastern Tennessee, Kentucky, Virginia, we might set up around 40 operatories. And at 40 operatories, we're anywhere from 350 to 400 volunteers on site each day of the event. If you get to larger scale events that go up to 100 to 140 chairs, you're talking anywhere from 800 to 900 volunteers each day of the event. Those volunteers are all walks of life. So half of them are providers, meaning dentists, medical doctors, optometrists, nurses, and so forth. The other half are general support. They can be personnel that have no medical experience at all. They just want to make a difference in someone's life. They show up, we train them on what role they can play at the event, from patient liaison to manufacturing eyeglasses on our eye labs. And then that day goes over successfully, providing that care.
So since 1992, how has the organization grown and evolved?
1992, we were a very small organization. We had about 4 dental operatories that we could set up. Over the years, we've expanded considerably.
Wow.
We're up to about 140 dental operatories. We have 40 lanes of vision, 4 mobile optical labs. Each of those labs can produce up to about 350 pair of eyeglasses in a single day. And then we have some mobile units, everything from 3 dental chair 18-wheelers all the way to a digital denture lab.
So I want to get back to some of the technology that you mentioned. So you mentioned the dental. I want to come back to that in a second, but you also make eyeglasses on the spot?
We do. So a patient that comes to our door looking for vision will go through a process to see a full comprehensive eye exam.
Wow.
So they'll get glaucoma testing, a refraction, slit lamp health evaluation of the eye, dilation if needed.
Wow.
And then they'll walk away typically with a prescription. We take that prescription to our dispensary where they pick out a brand new set of frames.
Wow.
Frames, dispensary on site. Yes, sir. So they'll pick out frames that are stylish and comfortable to them. That'll go out to our eye lab, and usually within about an hour and a half, we will produce the glasses on site for them, and they leave that day with a brand new set of eyewear.
That is amazing, because even the best local eyeglass facility will take maybe a week or so to send that off to have it produced and then return to me. But you're saying you can actually produce, not only have the prescription and the test done, but then produce the glasses within a day, if not the same day on site.
Absolutely. So about 80% of the prescriptions that come through are lenses that are stocked on our lab. So we produce them on site. About 20% are outside of the range of what we stock. And in that case, we bring them back to our office, order them from a larger lab, and then we ship them to the patients.
That is absolutely amazing. And then on the dental side, so talk to me about the technology used, because I understand you create 3D images or 3D products that are implants and other items related to that dental need. Tell me about that technology as well.
Absolutely. So on the dental side, we do everything from cleanings, fillings to extractions. But what we've uncovered over the years is the need for dentures, people that have had all their teeth extracted that are needing something to assist them in life. And one of the challenges in dentistry is conventional dentures. Conventional dentures usually take 2 to 3 months for us to produce. You have multiple visits to the doctor to be able to get that. And the population that we're seeing, we're only in town for usually 2 to 3 days. So it's very hard to complete those processes in that long period. And in the dental field, digital dentistry is kind of exploding. It's the newest technology, doing 3D design work of teeth. And so we jumped on early into that process and created this mobile denture lab, where many people said that couldn't be done. You couldn't put 3D printers in a mobile lab and they'd be effective. We've been able to take that. In the morning, we'll do a full scan, a digital scan of a patient's mouth. One of our denture techs or CAD techs will actually design the dentures, and then we'll 3D print them on site. We'll cure them, bond them, post-process them, and then that evening or the next morning, the doctor is fitting those new dentures, those new teeth to someone's mouth. And what that does is it truly changes a life. Someone can come in with no smile, and 24 hours later, have a whole new smile, a whole different output online, and be perceived by people a whole different way. Everyone notices our smiles.
And I see a lot of the for-profit dental organizations discussing just that, the commercials where they show the before and after, and how life-changing having a good set of teeth are, from just an ability to eat food to their presence and presentation. It can absolutely be life-changing.
Absolutely. It restores someone's hope in humanity. I mean, when you give them their smile back, we've deemed the term on that lab as a mirror moment. It's that moment they look in the mirror for the first time and see a full smile again. And it's emotional thinking about it. It's emotional talking about it. And you truly see that emotion on the lab. When someone sees themselves with a smile, they know the world perceives them differently. And it's not only the life of the person that's being affected, it's the people around them, their families, their friends that see them and see that new energy.
And you discussed some of your growth from 92 to current. So what does that look like in patients as well that you typically see on an annual basis?
So patients that we see on an annual basis, last year was around 30,000 plus patients that we were able to treat. So, and that's scattered across the country. That varies from rural Appalachia to downtown Los Angeles. We do all walks of life, urban areas, rural areas, and truly the patients that are coming to us are not, we get a question a lot of, do patients abuse the process because you're offering something free? The truth is patients come to our events and wait hours, sometimes sleeping in their car overnight. At a recent event we did in Knoxville, there was a patient that drove
Oh
7 hours
gosh.
to our parking lot to sleep in the parking lot for 2 days just to be able to get in and see a dentist. And so when you think of that type of story, who are we to judge the people that are walking through the door? These people are desperate for some type of help. And we have the providers, we have the equipment, we have the consumables to do it.
Right.
We want to provide that
And
help
most
for them
people,
when they show up.
there's
And so that's what our volunteers do each time that they
There's
show up.
certainly a large debate across the United States about healthcare, and the federal government has the federally qualified health centers, or the community hospitals as they're often known, which is a network of hospitals again throughout the country. Where do you fit relative to those organizations?
FQHCs are something that's important to the healthcare system. They're available across the country for all individuals that need them. The challenge that we see is you can live within a mile of the largest hospital chain in the world and not have
Interesting.
access to the care that's provided there. So some of the services that are offered at the events are things that are not offered at those locations. But the truth is when a patient shows up at our door asking for some type of care, most times they've not seen a doctor in 5 or more years. So it's not only about the immediate acute concern that they're coming in with, it's also long-term. So what we do is we partner with those communities. We treat the patient on site, and then typically we try to refer that
Right.
patient into some type of network that's already existent for them to get ongoing care past a 2-day event. All of it's a critical component, and we're just a small step of that component to try to get
Right.
them back healthy and better
Now,
living.
why should businesses, entrepreneurs, government leaders, why should they care about RAM and your story and what you provide?
I think RAM right now is filling a gap. We were
Right.
never created to be the solution to the healthcare problem. There has been expansion of insurance. There's been expansion to access to care across the country. But even with all of that expansion, we're
Right.
still seeing patients show up at our door. I've been volunteering with the organization for 20 plus years, and the same number of patients that were waiting 20 years ago
Wow.
are still waiting today to get that basic care. Every event that we do, we treat everyone that we can, but at the end of the event, we're still having to turn patients away because we've met our
Right.
capacity. The need still exists, and until we bridge that gap and get care to every person, the need for RAM services, I think, will continue. It's sad, if we could fix the healthcare position in our country,
Right.
RAM's eager to get back to the developing countries of the world and doing what we were doing originally founded for. But the truth is we don't see that need lessening, and so until that need lessens, we're going to continue
Right.
seeing the patients that we
Now,
can
Chris,
here
you
in our
mentioned
states.
working there. How long? 26 years? Wow. Now, I
Yes,
understand
sir.
that you started at 12. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. Absolutely. My story starts because my dad challenged me to get out and experience life different than the life that I lived. And at 12 years old, I went to a remote mountain in Tennessee called Lamb's Mountain. Funny enough, it was the
Oh,
100th
wow. Very
expedition
cool.
for remote area medical. And the person that took me was a good friend of my dad. He was an optician that had volunteered with the organization, was passionate about giving back to people. And we arrived at this mountain, I want to say it was like 4:30 in the morning. I remember it was cold. It was like 32 degrees on top of this mountain, just a bitter night. And when we got to the top, there
Wow.
were 200 plus patients standing in line waiting to get care. Some of the people that were standing in line were my age. They were kids. And I remember thinking, it shouldn't be this way. We shouldn't have to wait out in 30-degree temperatures just to get basic health care. And as a 12-year-old kid, I really didn't have a skill that I could perform at the event. So they put me in an eyeglass area,
Right.
and my role was to clean glasses. Once patients picked out glasses, at that time we
Yeah.
were using Lions Club glasses, so pre-made glasses. Once they picked them out, they would give them to me. I would take a cleaning cloth and clean the glasses. And something happened in that. Every single person that waited and received glasses, like you could see the smile on their face. You could see joy come back to someone. I mean, it was truly life-changing. And that experience
Right.
for a 12-year-old kid changed my life. It shaped my career into, I want to do something that gives back. I want to do something that makes life better for other people. And I've had the honor and the joy of being able to do that with
Now,
RAM.
what's the connection of your father then to the organization? That seems like a really neat experience that he provided that changed your life.
So funny enough, my father wasn't a mechanical or
Okay.
wasn't a healthcare person. He was a mechanical person. It was one of his friends that affected him that challenged him to do some volunteer work with me. But once I started volunteering and falling in love with it, my dad came on board as a volunteer, and he played a part in helping
Really?
design a few of our first mobile optical labs and getting them on the road. So it becomes a family thing. Once you volunteer with RAM, the next
Right.
thing you know, your spouse, your children, your parents, your cousins, friends all start showing up, and it becomes a group mentality thing that goes, and you get to see lives changed. It's an event where when you go in the morning, you
Right.
walk away at the end of the day very tired. It was an exhausting day. There's a lot of work, a lot of moving parts, but you wake up the next morning kind of restored with joy and hope that you were able to make a difference in someone's
So,
life.
Chris, very
And
early
we're
in
getting to do
my
that day in
young
and day out.
adult career, I was the chairman of the board for a division of the March of Dimes. And like you, when you meet those families with medical needs and you see the children at the neonatal intensive care unit that are fighting for their lives, they're less than, they're a pound, 2 pounds, 3 pounds, and it's moving. I've walked the hospitals quite a few times, and it definitely has a way of touching you. What can businesses do to help you? I know that you're.
Yeah, it definitely does. No, so businesses, what they can do is one, it's awareness of the organization. Our website is ramusa.org. You can follow us to see where we're doing clinics around the country. Come out, volunteer. Come out, see it in action. I promise if you come and see one of these events in action, something changes inside of you and you can't get away from it. You think about it. You go to bed at night thinking about how you can
Right.
make a difference in people's lives. Also, RAM is an organization that's a 501c3. We take no government or state funding to do any of the operations that we do. We survive on the donations of the public and corporations doing some corporate sponsorships and pieces with us. It's money that fuels the mission and takes healthcare to the
Yeah,
people.
and no, and this is certainly a tricky question to ask because I don't know how the charity and the giving piece works on your end. But who are some of those companies that really buy and believe in what you're doing that are making a huge impact through you that that are not anonymous that you would want to discuss?
Yeah. One of the large ones I will stand out with is Haleon. Haleon markets several brands such as Sensodyne and Advil. Haleon sponsored a tour, and we've been partners with them for about 3 years. And they do a tour through Walmart parking lots. We take a 3-chair dental operatory that's on the back of an 18-wheeler and our mobile denture lab, and we pull into a
Wow.
parking lot on a Saturday morning. We set up clinic and we offer care first come, first serve, free of cost to the patients that show up. And we've done probably about 70 of these events around the southeastern United States. And it's amazing. A patient that shows up to Walmart to go shopping, they're there to go buy dog food. They see a free dental care trailer and they come over. And it's amazing the stories that you hear, the people that have put off needed care that shouldn't be put off just to be able to live life. And we're able to alleviate that burden for them by providing it there in that parking
I
lot
can I can
and truly
imagine
change their
someone
day,
seeing
change
it
their
and they
life.
probably walk over to you and ask, "What's the catch?" Right? Because they're just so stunned by it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Very common. Yeah, yeah. Nothing in this world is free is
right.
what people will say. But with Rand, that's truly the amazing part is because of the generosity of the public donating and funding the mission, because of the generosity of our volunteers and the providers,
Right.
we're able to do this at no cost to the patients. Like it's truly about changing someone's life and giving them something that, you know what,
Right.
maybe they weren't even asking for. Maybe they've had this toothache for a while and we've all lived with a toothache. We've all had that where you wake up and you can't work, you can't think, you can't function. And some people are living with
You
this
know,
burden for months, if not years. And that day, there's some hope in humanity. They find something that truly changes and it alleviates that pain. And if you can restore that hope in someone, it's amazing the lives that they touch and spread joy to other people around them,
so,
not just the
Chris, you
patient
made me
getting the
think of
care.
this. I was at a meeting with a number of business leaders, and in that meeting was a young manager. I didn't realize how young she was. I thought she was older, but she was 21, and she seemed to be struggling that day from a mood and impact perspective. So I asked if she was okay, and she said, well, she was just dropped from her parents' insurance, and her wisdom teeth were growing in and impacting her other teeth, and so she was in a lot of pain. So I gave her some ideas on how she can go about finding the help that she needed. But you just made me think of it. She's probably a really good example. She didn't know what she didn't know and that she could potentially qualify. She was working. She was fully employed at one of the largest
Absolutely.
organizations in the country, but she wasn't sure what she should do and how she could qualify for their benefits. So she was just suffering through the pain from a dental perspective. And so if she was walking through that Walmart parking lot, she would have been glorious to see that she could take care of that pain through you.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, so many Americans live that way. It could be barriers from cost. It could be barriers from just not knowing the system or what to do in that system. That's the reason. That's what's special about RAM is it's not about the questions. When a patient comes, we don't ask them questions of what
Right.
qualifies them to be there. We ask some basic questions just so we can understand demographics of who we're reaching. But the truth is if they come to the event and they say they're John Smith, we treat them as John Smith. And we treat them as a human. We treat them and say, where are you hurting? What can we help? And we walk them through that process and try to remove all the barriers that have stood before them
So,
to get
so
that
Chris, that
care.
brings up a good question. When someone sees your event, what do they need to have in order to approach you? So they don't need to have their social security card, their birth certificate. They don't need their medical card. What do they need when they come to your door?
Nope.
Nice.
They just need to be present. Like that's the thing is you just show up to our event, get your ticket as you come into the door for the line, and then you walk in the door and you
Nice.
tell us where it hurts.
I've
We're here to take
volunteered
care
at
of what
quite
we
a
can.
few food banks, and some of them require so much information from a reporting structure that it can be challenging for families because they want to remain private. They don't want a lot of attention. They have a moment of need and they're trying to get that need fulfilled. You know, they maybe have small kids, they lost their job. I saw quite a few people during COVID at the food banks. And so that those questions oftentimes can eliminate people from participating in the program. And it sounds like you don't have those level of restrictions.
We do not. Again, we treat every single person that comes to our door. If you come and wait in line to get the service,
I love it.
we're there to treat you for the services that we can. Again, it's one of those barriers that we just try to
Right.
knock down just to make it so much
Now,
easier to get to the care that they
Tell me
need.
about Stan. I think Stan Brock, the founder of the organization, is probably one of the prime examples of servant leadership. Everything I've read, very humble. He wasn't out to become wealthy. Even I know this is a nonprofit, but he wasn't about gaining stature or becoming very notable in the community. He did this out of a true passion for helping other people. So tell us about Stan Brock.
Yeah, so Stan, just an amazing leader to be around. To understand Stan, you have to understand kind of his story. So at the age of 17, he lived in the United Kingdom and he moved to Guyana, South America. At that time, it was British Guyana. And he became a rancher on the largest
Wow.
cattle ranch in the world. While he was a rancher, he had to learn how to ride a horse. And he had an injury. He was on the back of a horse, and a horse took off and ran into the side of a corral, kind
Oh,
of crushing
gosh.
Stan between the horse and the corral. And the local Wapashani Indians that were there pulled the horse off of Stan and said, Stan, hang in there. We're 26 days on foot away from the nearest
Wow.
medical facility. And Stan in that time chose not to take that 26-day journey. He suffered through the pain and to get back to what he was doing. Years later, Stan was very fortunate to be a co-host on a show called Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. And when Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom came and asked him to do it, he made a commitment to the local Wapashani Indians that if he made any type of fame, any type of money, he would bring back doctors
Wow.
closer than 26 days on foot. And Stan carried through with that. He founded this organization in 1985 out of his own pocket. He worked all the way till his passing, never drawing a check. He was a true volunteer. And when I think of Stan, the thing I can think of it from a volunteer standpoint, and then when I came on staff, is he was someone truly dedicated to the mission. The gentleman worked 7 days a week, nonstop. In all
Wow.
the years that I knew him, I never knew him to take a day off. He was always committed to the mission. I joke around, but later in his life, he had a hip replacement. And the day that he went for his hip replacement, they kept him overnight. So it's the only day that I know of Stan not working. But the very next morning after a hip replacement, he came back to our office and he stood for 12 hours answering the emails that he had received from the day before. He was that dedicated to the mission. It meant something to him. He cared. He felt like he was a
Right.
voice to the people that didn't have a voice. And he took that stardom, that fame, the several movies that he played in after it, and he poured out to show that access to healthcare doesn't exist for every single person in this country. And so that's the whole reason RAM exists. And working with him is life-changing. It was very hard in the
Right.
early days because I was a young person who was married, trying to raise a family. And I joke around, but it was really hard to ask for a day off
That's
when your
true.
boss hadn't had a day off in 20 plus years. But it's one of those things that there was an ambition there
Right.
and the mission never dies. And Stan's comments were always, we will never forget our mission. It stands true to this day. We must never forget the mission that we were formed or born to create. And so that's what we're trying to do day in and day out here at the
So,
organization
Chris,
here
I
at Brand
suspect that
Headquarters.
at the age of 12, climbing up that mountain where it was cold, you never thought you'd be the CEO of the organization. What's that journey been like? Like how did little 12-year-old Chris now become a leader in the health community, helping so many families across the United States?
You know, something happened, like I said, on that mountain that changed my life, and I wanted to make a bigger impact. So I followed the optical career. So I continued volunteering with RAM throughout my high school career and entry into college. After college, I came out
Yes.
and I started working
Right.
for a company called Luxottica, or Lens Crafters, and had multiple stores across Tennessee that I ended up having the opportunity to be responsible for. The beautiful thing is, working at Lens Crafters, I was able to tie in what I was doing
Right.
back to remote area medical. So at that time, RAM was still small scale. But there were opportunities where they weren't able to produce all the glasses that were needed for an event. And so we were able to use our lens crafters
Nice.
resources to manufacture those. So we still got to play a
Now,
part. Then in 2013, Stan called, and to back up just a little bit, 2008,
right.
RAM was featured on 60 Minutes. It was a life-changing moment for the organization. The organization went from about a $150,000 a year operation to
Wow.
receiving over $4 million that next year after 60 Minutes aired. And in 2013, Stan called and said, Chris, we're doing 10 to 12 events a year. We have a ton of money in the bank that we do not know how to spend. Would you come and help us spend this properly, build out our infrastructure so that we can do more events? He goes, I dream of the day when we can do 60, 80, 100 operations in a single year. And so in 2013, I left Lens Crafters to come on at RAM, and it has been a wild journey ever since. We went from 12 events a year to, counting telehealth this year, we have close to 300 different deployments that we're
It's
doing.
amazing.
So it's almost every single day. RAM is in
So,
action
Chris, I
somewhere
want to
with its
talk
staff and
about
its
your
volunteers.
leadership from a business perspective. You mentioned Luxottica, and I didn't realize you worked there. Most people might not know what Luxottica is, but they're a large global company. Not only do they own lens crafters, but they own iMed, very vertically integrated. And so I suspect that you gained a lot of great business skills and leadership from them. But tell me about your leadership concepts and what you've learned along the way that's helping you now at RAM.
Yeah, so I'm very fortunate. Luxottica pumped a lot into the training of the management and business aspect, business acumen into me and all the general managers and regional managers across that company. Taking that knowledge into an organization that was a very small scale, kind of like a mom and pop shop, was different. I came from something, if I needed a form, it had already been created
Right.
and existed, to an organization that, like, we didn't even have job descriptions when I first came on. Like, no one
Right.
knew what their role was within the organization. We just knew that we had to set up clinics every weekend and treat patients. So for me, it was establishing some basic structure. What are the roles of the organization? What are the roles that people serve? What does it take to duplicate those roles? At one point, we had one person that was responsible for all the clinics that we did around the world. And that one person, there was a thought one day of, what happens if this person gets sick? What happens if they come down with the flu and they're out for a week? How would we continue? Everyone had pieces of the knowledge, but not all of the knowledge. So then we started looking at ways that we could take that knowledge, document it into training so we could train additional people to be prepared. Those steps have really kind of set us up for where we're at now. We've created, currently, RAM has around 65 employees. Of those 65, about 5 of them are in development. So they're in the fundraising side, meeting donors and working with corporate sponsors and grants and foundations. 5 of them are in finance. So they're managing the money and the expenses, ensuring that we are not overspending what the donors are allowing us to spend or giving us through donations. The rest of that team is operations based. So their specific skill sets, everything from full scale medical dental vision clinics to transportation and logistics. We employ CDL drivers to drive our 18-wheelers around the country. Then another large portion is our volunteer side. Last year, we had over
Wow.
17,000 volunteers participate in events at RAM across the country. It takes a team. Right now, we have a team of 8 that are responsible for all 17,000 of them. So everything from recruiting them, getting the awareness out of where the events are and ensuring that they're staffed, to vetting the licenses of each provider. So everyone that signs up, we're fortunate in Tennessee. Tennessee allows doctors to cross state lines. So a provider that's licensed in New York can come here to volunteer for the weekend, just as they would as they're in their home state. But that's not the case in most of the states across the country. So when we go into a different state, such as Arkansas, Mississippi, Utah, we have to verify, one, that they can get a volunteer license, or if not, we have to recruit locally, local providers. And doing that, we have to vet their license, ensure that they're safe to practice, that we're abiding all the red tape that is set out there before us to try to prevent this from happening. We have to cut through all of that to make sure that we can. And it's a truly team mentality. For me, I use a kind of decentralized leadership piece. I have a great team around me, and I trust them to make those judgments and lead. And it's amazing whenever you take the limits off of someone,
Right.
what they can produce.
Right.
And we
Now,
get to see that day in and day out here.
So for those business people that are looking and listening at the program, running a nonprofit doesn't mean that it's more simple than running a business, even to start a business, because what you described is what every business leader tells me, especially when they're ramping up, creating job descriptions, figuring out how to deal with those single points of failure, succession planning. Now, what makes you unique, though, is that you've got this global and certainly across the United States logistics challenge. So you're dealing with compliance issues and trying to get the equipment that you need across the entire country. That is absolutely massive for you to coordinate and to manage. So I appreciate all that you've done and how you've come about addressing those specific challenges. And at the same time, you're providing something that's so critical to the community. And so in this day and age where we talk a lot about technology and AI, something that what you're doing is so fundamental. From being able to provide quality healthcare. So it's amazing what you're doing.
Thank you. It's an honor to do what we do. And again, I tip my hat to the team. It's the people around me that are the true magicians that make this show go. They're the ones that come into the day, understand the challenges that are ahead, and conquer those challenges. The one thing I will say, coming from a nonprofit side versus a for-profit side, there's a difference on the for-profit side of delivering the sales expectations and delivering the profit and losses that are needed. From the nonprofit side, the challenge is the decisions we make. I have to be comfortable at the end of the day looking at a donor and saying, "Hey, I used the money you donated to do this." It's a little different aspect, little different approach or look at than what it would be in a for-profit world. But I'm honored to say that our team uses our resources wisely, and they stretch the dollar as far as they can to make sure that we're delivering the best.
So, Chris,
and the
I
most
want
amount
to
of care
end with
in a short
this
period of time.
premise in mind. So, you have large company sponsors, and I know you have a lot of local community partners as well. But why should a fairly early stage or small local company contribute and participate? So, let's say you have a local plumbing company in Wisconsin. They feel like they want to give and do something for the community. Why should they participate with you? Why should that small local company that might not have the big margins and a big a corporate budget to work with, why should they be a part of the team?
Because nothing is more important than making an impact on someone else's life. And when you can make an impact on someone's life, someone that can probably never even repay you for the impact that you make for them, there's a joy that comes from that. Getting involved from a sponsorship sponsors healthcare. It sponsors restoring hope for people. It restores hope in humanity. It makes the community better. It also gives you an opportunity to volunteer and be a part. I would be crazy not to think that all the different clinics that I've went through over the years, how many connections and lifelong friends I've made just in those crossings, people that I would have never crossed paths with originally, are doing the same thing I was doing. They were coming to make a difference in someone's life. And when you can get like minds like that in one place, the networking possibilities are endless. And to this day, there are people that I've met through RAM clinics as volunteers that play a critical role in shaping the development of the future. So if you're a small company, investing in your community is huge. It making life better for other people is it's life changing. The why should you do that? You should do that because you want a better life for the people around you. Because when you make that better life for them, it all comes back full circle and it makes a better life for you. When people see that you care, they care also.
Now, I speak a lot often about the work of Peter Drucker, who's the founder of MBOs, Management by Objectives. And he mentions that any community, for a community to prosper, you need the nonprofit community, you need the business community, and you need local government working together to provide a great community for our citizens and our people. So it sounds like that's what you've described as well.
Absolutely. That is, again, one of the things I love of RAM is while RAM is there for 2 days, the planning phase of the clinics are 12 to 24 months. So the whole goal is that when RAM comes in for 2 days, we're able to provide a lot of care to patients. But once RAM leaves and goes to its next community, that community has new connections that were never there before. And that community is a tighter knit community and can provide for its community.
It's neat that you discuss what you leave
gone.
behind as well, that you're not just there and then leave, but you're pulling people together that will hopefully outlast the few days that you're in town. Now, last question for you. We're celebrating 250-year anniversary of the United States. And I think often of our veterans. And I know there's so much need even in that veteran community. Do you see a lot of veterans coming through your program and visiting your sites as well across the country?
Yeah. So around 7% of the patients that come through our doors are veterans, whether currently enlisted or retired veterans. Again, that there's barriers and challenges for them to get to the care that they need. And RAM breaks that barrier down so that they can get it in a moment's notice. In a single day, they can come have their dental work taken care of and even possibly get an eye exam and glasses. So for us, veterans have sacrificed a lot. They sacrificed their time, their years of their life for our country. And we're honored to be able to provide the care that we can.
And I know there's been a lot of changes in the VA hospital, but a lot of times there's so far if someone wants to go to the VA hospital that commute seems kind of like Stan's journey, trying to get to, that 26-day journey. So it sounds like you're bringing that closer to them when you're in town.
Absolutely. And that's the goal. It's bringing the care to the communities that need it. to the communities that without the care
Chris,
would go
thank you
unanswered.
so much for joining us on the Business Decoded podcast. I'm hoping that people will listen to this and they recognize the impact that you provide, not just to other businesses and the communities by being a partner, but also to those individuals in each one of those communities. It's just such a needed piece, and healthcare is at the top of everyone's need. From an individual life and survival standpoint, they need food, they need water. Healthcare is also one of those that become a necessity for many people. So I appreciate all that you're doing. I appreciate seeing the older Chris from 12-year-old finding his passion in life and finding his mission, and now continuing this service to so many people. I appreciate all that you do. Thank you for joining us on the Business Decoded podcast. Please be certain to share this episode and our other episodes to your friends. Make sure that you subscribe. Our goal is to provide you with information like RAM so that you can be a better partner in your communities. Again, thanks for joining us on the Business Decoded podcast with Ronnie Spellman.
Stay ahead of the curve. Subscribe right now. We will see you at the next episode.